Okay, we're back. We're live. We're ThinkTech Talks here on a given Monday. Mondays are always so exciting. I just came back from a trip, so even more exciting. And this is going to be our regular 4 to 5 block show on Monday, Agritech in Hawaii. And today our special guest, Alan Everson. He's the regional aquaculture coordinator for NOAA here in this region, which is a big region. It's not a little region, is it?
Yes, it's a big region. It includes Hawaii, American Samoa, Guam, and the Commonwealth of the Northern Marianas. So It's a vast region.
How do you sleep at night?
It's tough.
Well, let's talk about what it means to be the regional aquaculture coordinator in a region where so much is possible. I mean, this has got to be the most fertile area in the world, right? Isn't it? It's got so much ocean out there, so much pure ocean, if I may say, more than other oceans. This is a huge pure ocean. And of course, there's the tension between keeping it pure and developing new ways to fish. So let's talk about what it means to be the regional coordinator.
I think that's one of the reasons that I took on this position. You know, I've been working for NOAA in various capacities for the past 30 years or so, mainly in resource management, you know, protecting the environment, making sure that, you know, Hawaii remains pristine. But I think there's so much potential in aquaculture, especially out here.
This was a choice then. It's not like you got a letter one day and said, Mr. Everson, you better report. It's more like you made a choice.
Yeah, a couple of years ago I joined the aquaculture program. I'm one of the 5 regional coordinators throughout the country. We have coordinators in the Northwest, Northeast, and our new West Coast
And you talk to each other?
Region. Yes, we talk to each other on a regular basis.
Learned, you know?
Yeah, and I think NOAA brings a lot to the table as far as research. We have science centers throughout the country that are involved with aquaculture research, really hitting on the points that have been really kind of a stumbling block to moving aquaculture forward. I mean,
I want to talk about that, but first, what's your background? Are you a scientist?
Yeah, I'm a UH grad.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See how UH works.
And I've been in, like I said, I've been working for NOAA as a researcher for, the past 30 years or so.
Researching what?
Early in my career, I did a lot of reproductive work on snapper groupers, bottom fish. I did lobster biology work back in the day, and went on a lot of research cruises to the northwestern Hawaiian Islands back when that was the untapped fishing ground. Back in the late 70s, early 80s, before it became a monument.
It was a perfect guy for this job, really. So let's talk about NOAA for a minute. I feel a special affinity for NOAA, and I'll tell you why. Because I was in the Coast Guard back in the 60s, early 70s. And at one point, we were going to be swept out of the Treasury Department into NOAA. We were going to become a NOAA agency. Hey, like that. And then it changed because they created the Department of Transportation, and we got put in that, and then after 9/11, Homeland Security.
Right.
So we never made the trip to NOAA, but that would have been interesting because NOAA is sort of a different orientation than Treasury or Transportation, or for that matter, Homeland Security.
Yeah, definitely.
So what's it like in NOAA?
It's a great place to work. It's just we have a fair amount of resources on the table.
What's that? What resources do you have?
Basically, the people that work for NOAA are incredible, brain trust of folks, and
a lot of scientists.
A lot of scientists, various researchers. We have policy folks. It pretty much runs the gamut.
So what is the mission? I mean, it'd be the National Oceanic
Atmospheric Administration.
Atmospheric.
So that includes the Weather Service.
Yeah.
That includes our National Marine Fishery Service, which I work for. It includes our National Ocean Service, which is another branch of NOAA that does ocean-related research. And then there's the NOAA Corps that runs our research vessels. So it's quite wide-ranging.
I guess you could call it the SOEST of the federal government.
I think that's a good analogy. Yeah. All the mapping we do, and satellite stuff, and just
it's all science.
Really incredible. Yes, science and policy.
Yeah, and what is the policy about? I mean, I guess people would assume the policy is about protecting the environment as a resource for the country, as an asset for the country. But tell me, what do they say in NOAA?
Well, I can speak more for the National Marine Fisheries Service, which is where I work. It's divided up into two different sections. We have a research branch that goes out on the research vessels and does the targeted research on fish and endangered species. And then there's the management side, which I work for the management branch of NOAA, which is the Pacific Island Regional Office. And basically, they're tasked with issuing the fishing permits and writing fishery management plans with the help of our fishing council, the Westpac Council. We also have an endangered species branch that manages, all the endangered species interactions. We have an international fisheries branch that does high seas tuna treaty type work. We have an observer program that goes out on the research vessels. What did I forget to mention? Sustainable fisheries actually, works with the council directly. And then we have the Habitat Conservation Division that I've worked for 10 or 12 years.
What habitat are we talking about?
Habitat, basically, NOAA, the federal government's involved with stuff that's actually 3 miles out. We don't really work in state waters directly. We work in state waters as, kind of in an advisory capacity. So most of our stuff is out.
Yeah, so there's all kinds of interesting jurisdictional issues. So you're not in the 3 mile limit.
But because of the fact that endangered species and various fish species use state waters, we do work in state waters.
Okay, but your primary jurisdiction would be 3 to 12?
For fishery actions, like managing fisheries. Our direct involvement in fisheries management is 3 miles and out.
Beyond 12?
No, 3 miles and out.
Territorial waters, 12.
Yeah.
And what about the...
all the way to the EEZ, 200 miles.
Yeah.
So from 3 to 200.
Economic zone, yeah.
Yeah.
So you're all the way from 3 to 200?
Yes.
And after that, no jurisdiction?
I'm not sure what has, that's the high seas.
Yeah.
So,
anything
international waters.
Okay, well, it strikes me that's a pretty complex mandate to have policy in all of those areas in a world that's changing, in a world which is more and more competitive, and which will become even much more competitive going forward, in a search for protein, if you will.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because, we're looking at, as a country, we're importing almost 90% of our seafood in this country.
Yeah.
And actually half of that comes from aquaculture.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, and most of that comes from China.
Aquaculture in China.
Yeah. So we think we can do it better here. We think we can do it better. We, again, the environment is still our #1 priority. Environmental protection, but we understand now that you can do both. You can have aquaculture move forward and still protect the environment.
What's the dynamic? I mean, you imply that it's we're kind of waking up to the development possibilities where before we were not so sensitive to them. I mean, which way is it going?
Well, I think, back 20, 30 years ago when the salmon industry was first developing, there was a lot of mistakes.
Mistakes in terms of mistakes against the environment.
Against the environment, the densities were too high. There were disease problems. There were escapes. Yeah. But the industry has learned a lot from those early days, and a lot of it's been through research that NOAA has sponsored. The other big issue was feeds. People say that you have to feed 5, 6, 7 pounds of fish, a feed to get 1 pound of aquaculture fish. But again, those dynamics are changing rapidly. Now we have about a 1-to-1 ratio.
It's more efficient.
Yeah. So it's not that big burden on the wild stocks of anchovies and sardines and the other fish that go into fish meal.
So it starts with regulating the environment, and then what's happening is the pressure for protein keeps growing, and the lessons are learned about how
Yeah.
to do it, then NOAA sort of helps them, or at least doesn't stand in the way as much as it used to. I mean, you're a regulator, aren't you?
Yeah, well,
And you have to give permits before people can do things.
Part of our agency is responsible for at least commenting on permit actions through the Corps of Engineers.
And these are permits to fish or to do aquaculture.
Oh, that would be to do aquaculture. There are permits to fish, or the federal permits that the longliners need to get in the other federal fisheries.
That's not yours.
No. That's NOAA. That's our Sustainable Fisheries Division.
But that's oh, it is. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So all fishing, including wild fishing and aquaculture fishing
In federal waters.
in federal waters, that means up to 200 miles. That's
Yes.
NOAA.
Yes.
How do you sleep at night?
So we can talk about the opportunities in federal waters a little bit later, but there's.
Well, let's talk about the environment first. Okay, we have a degrading planet, and I guess NOAA's been, well, it was created out of that notion that we have to protect that.
Right.
So how badly, I mean, in your perception, from the point of view of an aquaculturist, how badly are the oceans deteriorating right now?
In certain places, it's quite dramatic. I mean, it just depends on where you're at. I think in Hawaii we're actually fairly lucky, because our location is basically right in the middle of the ocean, and we haven't got hit with a lot of the stuff that's happening in other places. The overriding, scary thing is, of course, is what's happening with the ocean as far as ocean acidification. Because of the CO2 levels in the atmosphere.
What happens if the CO2 level goes higher and the ocean becomes acidified because the acid falls into the water?
Well, basically all the creatures that have shells that are calcium-based shells, they're just going to dissolve. Coral, for instance, in a lot of places the coral is disappearing because of the fact that the oceans are becoming more and more acidic.
What happens if the coral disappears?
Well, you're missing a whole ecosystem in a place where lots of fish thrive, and people depend on coral reefs for sustenance.
So they
in other
won't
places
grow
around the
anymore.
world. No, I mean
there won't be any fish.
Well, there won't be any coral
reef fish.
Coral reef fish in those particular places because the coral will be gone.
You talk about things that deteriorate the ocean. It comes to mind that we had the trash island come from Japan, from Fukushima, and it wasn't that far away, and it could come back. It went into sort of that area as the mainland goes up to Alaska,
Right.
and it could come back. It was a close call anyway, and we've seen some of the trash here in these waters.
Yeah, so that's even more. It's even more important to keep our place here in Hawaii as pristine as possible. Yeah. It really is. And believe it or not, there's the Natural Energy Lab in Kona has a venture. Well, there's a couple different ventures that are growing shellfish, oysters and manila clams. The spat and the larvae are grown in Hawaii and exported back to the West Coast because of the ocean acidification problem. They can't grow them anymore there very successfully. So Hawaii is becoming a hub
We could be a great production facility
for oysters and clams. There's at least 3 different facilities now in Hawaii that are growing them out and sending them back. So the clams and oysters that you may eat that come from the mainland may have originated in Hawaii.
What about abalone? You include that?
The Big Island, there's a venture out in Nelha that's growing abalone with the coal water from the OTEC plant.
Yeah.
But that's a little bit different.
It's not a shellfish.
It is a shellfish.
Oh, yeah. Okay, all right.
But it's not being affected by ocean acidification in the areas where it's grown at this point.
I see. Okay, what other indications do we have of the deterioration of the oceans that we need to be concerned about?
Land-based sources of pollution are always a problem, because of places where there's lots of development and runoff.
That could be right around Hawaii because we've had red dirt down through down through the plantation systems, I guess, going out into the ocean.
And there are places where it's more dramatic. Some places, especially off the west side of Molokai, where there's a lot of problem with erosion. There's nothing to hold the dirt, so whenever it rains, all that stuff comes out into the ocean.
And that destroys the flora and fauna.
It has a negative impact on the reef, definitely.
Okay. So, what about the open ocean? What about those vast groups of tuna out there, whatnot, of ahi, in the middle of nowhere? Are they suffering too?
Well, I think in certain places there's been overfishing, and that's probably the biggest threat.
What is overfishing actually?
Taking more fish out than can reproduce.
I'd like to talk to you about that, if I may, right after this break. I mean, my question is, so what are the mechanisms in this world to know when we are overfishing and when we should stop fishing? I suppose that's treaty, but I'll wait for my answer until right after the break. That's Alan Everson. He's a regional aquaculture coordinator in this region of NOAA, which is, I guess, most of the Pacific Ocean. And this is Agritech in Hawaii. What's holding up aquaculture in Hawaii? We'll be right back.
I'm Hong Jiang, host for Asia in Review on Tuesdays.
It's hard to get your arms around.
And I'm Jay Fidell, host for Asian Review on Thursdays. Both of us broadcast our respective shows at 4 p.m.
And my topics tend to deal with questions related to environment, culture, history, and sometimes human rights.
And my shows tend to be on international business, foreign policy, geopolitics, and national security. And you can watch our shows live on the ThinkTech website at thinktechhawaii.com.
And you can also watch us on YouTube or Olalo.
So come join us on Thursdays at 4 p.m. I'm David Day.
And on Tuesdays at 4 p.m., I'm Hong Jiang.
Aloha.
Okay, this is ThinkTech Talks on a Monday in the 4 to 5 block. And we're talking about Agritech in Hawaii with Alan Everson. He's a regional aquaculture coordinator for NOAA in this region. And the title of our show is What's Holding Up Aquaculture in Hawaii? And I know it sounded like we were going into fisheries, but I want to get a handle, Alan, on why we need aquaculture so badly these days. So you say it's overfished.
Yeah, there's a finite amount of fish in the ocean, and the demand for seafood's increasing. Most of our federal fisheries are very well managed. The trouble with the pelagics like tuna is that they're in the high seas. They're located away from the places where there's effective fisheries management, so they're under international treaties. So it compounds the problem, makes it more difficult to manage. But we're doing our best. We have an international fisheries division that works on those high seas tuna treaty issues. And that just we're going to continue to need protein from the sea. We can't really take that much more from our wild stocks, over the next, I'm talking the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So that need has to come from, responsible, sustainable aquaculture.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's scary because, as the planet grows, we have greater needs. And if we can't fish in the high seas, then we really must do this for protein.
Yeah.
And so this is a new world. All in the time, really, that you've been associated with the agency.
Yeah.
Everything has changed now, and
dramatically.
Then you have, the science is moving. I think people don't realize that aquaculture today is nothing like what it was, 10 or 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's changed.
High science.
It's evolved a lot. Again, we've learned from some of the past mistakes, and we're pushing forward in a responsible manner.
Yeah. How has it changed? I mean, we know more, but what is that? How does that show us what to do better? What kinds of things?
We have a better handle on potential environmental impacts. It's a matter of density, how many fish are in a given area, and how much they're fed. So we have much better tools to manage that as far as feed. We know we have better information on siting aquaculture ventures. You know, you have to site them in the right place, where there's a high current regime, where that stuff, that potential pollutants get flushed away.
Okay,
and,
so
and diluted.
if you have an area with aquaculture fish in a aquaculture facility, you run the risk that pollutants and I don't know if antigens is the right word, but things that damage, that hurt the fish, you run the risk that those will be concentrated, and the fish will have nowhere to go, and they'll suffer because of these.
Right.
Agents.
Well, we're concerned about the benthic communities directly below the cages.
This is the fish poop problem.
Yeah.
So they poop and poop and poop, and that's not necessarily a good thing for them.
In the past, there's been problems where ventures haven't been sited correctly. They've been sited in very, very shallow inshore areas where there's not much circulation, and there's been degradation to the benthic community. We have really only one offshore aquaculture operation that's currently raising fish off Kona.
Which is
that's Blue Ocean Mariculture. They're raising Hawaiian kampachi, which is basically kahala. And they've shown through multiple years of rigorous testing that they have no net negative impact on the surrounding environment off of Kona, just because it's monitored so carefully.
So tell me, what is the depth of the water in the area they're operating?
It's about 200 feet.
Okay, so what falls down doesn't actually hit the bottom? Does it float away before it hits the bottom anymore?
The current regime is so strong out there that most of that stuff gets carried away.
By the ordinary tide?
By the currents.
Currents,
Yeah.
And so it never really gets to the bottom, therefore it doesn't build up, therefore you don't have a...
No, it'd be like fish. There's fish in the ocean that are, pooping.
Yeah.
So, it's no different. Of course, they're aggregated in one place, but as long as there's enough dynamics to move that stuff out, there really isn't any problem.
So when you say monitor, I guess you monitor the currents. You monitor to see how the currents are working?
Well, actually, there's water quality monitoring that goes on. There's benthic monitoring that's required under their MPDS permit. So they have to do, I think, yearly benthic monitoring now and quarterly water quality monitoring all around the cage, the facility.
The cages are on open ocean cages,
yes.
Right? But they're near the land. How near are they?
I think it's about a half mile offshore.
It's not that far.
Yeah.
So you run the risk of having, for example, a bay configuration, then
if it were a bay, that wouldn't be a very good place.
Yeah. So you want it to be open so the currents can come through.
Yeah.
If you don't do this, okay, if you had it shallow and the poop stayed there, or if you had it in a bay and the currents just didn't take them away, the fish get sick. What happens?
Well, the fish usually, depending on the densities, will do okay. It's the area directly below the cage that could become anoxic. So the benthic, whether it be a sand bottom, it becomes kind of mucky.
Yeah. It damages the environment.
Well, yeah.
And so what is the effect of that over time?
Nothing can grow. The creatures that would normally inhabit the sand, there's a whole community of organisms that inhabit
So again,
sand.
you go back to the ecosystem, and it's damaged the. Even if the fish came out healthy, that doesn't solve the problem if this is accumulating at the bottom.
Yeah, we don't want that to happen. I mean, that's, again, the environment is our primary consideration. It has to go hand in hand. So again, the aquaculture ventures have to be put in the right place.
Okay,
and the density of fish have to be, reasonable.
And it's all with regard to the poop problem, because you had a lot of fish, they would create that much more poop.
That and excess food. excess food.
Excess food also goes down to that.
Yeah, it could.
That,
but again, like I said before, that's been managed a lot better now. So they have a much better handle on the feed rates, things like that. They don't want to waste food because, it costs money. So they're very careful.
This sounds to me like this against the fishing, the high seas being fished out is ultimately a very promising activity, and so much so that it will feed Hawaii. It'll provide lots of protein for Hawaii. I mean, if we can expand it, and B, we could export. We could be a center of fish production, because if you can do it in a way so that it doesn't deteriorate the ocean or the bottom,
right?
Then you can be almost an unlimited factory, right? And you can do lots of production here.
Pretty much. And you want to go hand in hand in cooperation with the people that do fish. You don't want to affect their livelihood. So
That's a problem in Hawaii, because I sense that there's a tension, not only between the government's scientific concern about the environment and development of fisheries, aquaculture fisheries, but also sort of cultural objections, or some people believe that culturally, the Hawaiian culture owns the ocean, owns the fish, and they would oppose open ocean aquaculture. They would oppose anyone who would stop them from fishing it as they have, in the past, on that basis. And this is. I mean, do you get involved in that? That's hard to deal with that.
I think there's a certain group of people that feel that way, but again, the bottom line, is to respect the culture and to respect the environment. And you have to convince people that you can do both. So it's all a matter of changing perceptions and letting people know that it's not a bad thing, and it's not going to impact their cultural sensitivities. It can be done, in concert.
Yeah.
And in fact, it's been shown that when you put an aquaculture venture out there, it actually can have an effect to enhance fisheries production in the particular area.
How does that work?
Because there's more nutrients.
Oh, from the seafood. And it's like chumming the waters.
It's also a FAD effect, a fishery aggregation device effect, where you're familiar with the fishery aggregation devices around the islands. Well, they have these. They're mooring arrays that attract fish that are out 6, 8, 10 miles, and there's 20 or 30 of them that the state has put out there, and it's been shown that attracts fish. It attracts the small bait fish, and that attracts the larger fish. So an aquaculture venture has the same effect.
That's because of the seafood, or rather the fish food that is in the area, and that.
Well, it's a combination of the fact that it's something the fish that they can aggregate on, and it creates a little bit higher nutrient levels. Hawaii is really a nutrient-poor environment, oceanographically. We term it oligotrophic, meaning it's nutrient-poor. And that's the reason we don't have huge fisheries here, like we do in the mainland, where there's a continental shelf and there's upwelling that brings up lots of nutrients. So there's potential for aquaculture to actually enhance productivity.
Wow. Okay, so we're going to take a break in a minute, and when we come back, I'd like to know how you see this unfolding going forward. I mean, if we just draw the dynamic of the deterioration of the wild fisheries and the developing science of doing aquaculture, and although there are mistakes made even now, ultimately we'll solve these problems. What role can Hawaii play? And this is the primary question: how does it get there? What do we do to incentivize, aquaculture developers? What do we do to get the permits quicker? What do we do to satisfy those people who would like to retain native, ancient fishing rights in those places. So we'll take a break. We'll come back and get into the real protein of it. Okay, that's Alan Everson, Regional Aquaculture Coordinator in this region, which is the Pacific Ocean, for NOAA, talking about agritech in Hawaii today in our 4 to 5 block. And the operative question is what's holding up aquaculture in Hawaii? I'm Jay Fidell. We'll be right back. I'm Jay Fidell. That's Sharon Moriwaki of the Hawaii Energy Policy Forum. And every Wednesday we have Hawaii, the state of clean energy. We've been doing it for some time now, and we have some fantastic guests on there, unbelievable guests who give us insight into what is going on in a very complex, sometimes very confusing, sometimes very disappointing area of progress in the state. So we love doing this. We love meeting them. We love talking to them. We love having their ideas out on the table. So maybe, just maybe, we can all make some sense of what's going on. Sharon, what do you think?
I think that's absolutely correct. We enjoy ourselves meeting with all these people and hearing about the energy and the state of clean energy, and hopefully we advance clean energy for the state. So it's terrific. Join us.
Okay, it's every Wednesday. Okay, Wednesday is Energy Day. Every Wednesday, 4 to 5 p.m. Hawaii, the state of clean energy, here on ThinkTech Hawaii. We'll see you there. We're back. We're live. We're here with Alan Everson, the Regional Aquaculture Coordinator for NOAA in the Pacific area. And I might add that we had a program, ThinkTech had a downtown forum 2 programs ago, in which Alan was a member of the panel. And we had, altogether quite a few members, I think about half a dozen members of the panel. Mm-hmm. And we talked about aquaculture in Hawaii. We started out talking about agriculture, and we wound up finding that aquaculture was really going to be the new agriculture, and that's the way it is. So you're an important person, and what is happening here is very important for Hawaii. I don't think we can say we're going to have a renaissance of big plantation agriculture. This is the thing that's moving forward. So tell us how does the battle go?
Well, you mentioned the cultural aspects, and the Hawaiians have a long tradition of aquaculture actually in Hawaiian fish ponds, and I mentioned to you before about this meeting we had at the sanctuary office, the Humpback Whale Sanctuary office. Was 2 or 3 years ago. It was a visioning session on the future of aquaculture. They were centered on the sanctuary, but basically in Hawaii. And it brought together Hawaiian fish pond practitioners as well as offshore aquaculture operators. And there was lots of common problems. And at the end of the day, everybody had a common vision of really having Hawaii's ocean environment be maintained pristine. That was the goal. And a couple of the things that were mentioned as constraints were trying to negotiate the permit process. So it turns out that when you want to restore a Hawaiian fish pond, you need a whole plethora of permits from federal and state agencies.
A Hawaiian fish pond, you mean the ancient Hawaiian fish pond? I mean, are there people who actually want to do that? Because it's not likely to be efficient these days.
Oh, it's actually, can be very efficient at the community level.
A small community, the Ahapua.
The community surrounding the fish pond, yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's stories of back in the ancient Hawaiian days, the fish ponds fed, up to 1 million people in Hawaii.
So where are they now? I mean, if they're actually, making progress in this.
There's a few that are up and running, but there's lots of them that need work. They need to be restored. There's actually an organization called Huimalama Loko'ia. Loko'ia is fish pond in Hawaiian. Mm-hmm. That has 80 or 90 active members from various fish ponds around the state.
Mostly the neighbor islands, I guess.
No, there's Oahu.
Really?
As well as the neighbor islands.
Where, North Shore?
There's some on the windward side. There's some on the North Shore, yeah.
Interesting. So, and they're actually, redeveloping these fish ponds to be productive and and
Yes.
yield edible and, you know,
Yes.
tasty fish.
Yeah. In fact, there's Moli'ipan out at Kualoa Ranch is already raising oysters for
I
sale.
heard about that, yeah.
So, and other ponds like Heia, which is down the road near Kaneohe, they're in the process of restoring their pond. They're raising
So,
fish.
but you say in order to do this kind of, restore the ancient fish pond, move a rock, as it were.
Yeah, so at this visioning session, we identified a problem. A problem that both the offshore people and the Hawaiian fish pond people face. So we had a follow-up meeting about a year later that was more targeted on Hawaiian fish ponds. And in the room we had people from the Department of Health, we had the Corps of Engineers, we had folks from the sanctuary, we had the state OCCL folks.
What does that stand for?
The Office of Coastal and Conservation Lands, the folks that issue the Conservation District use permits, which you also need to restore a fish pond. And we came up with an idea of how to tackle this problem. And it was through a programmatic approach. Have one permit that everybody signs off on. So basically you do a master programmatic EA, and it goes through the state process and the federal process. And at the end of the day, the fish pond practitioner only has to go to one place and get their permit.
Oh, that's like heaven on earth, but
So
how do you achieve that?
This is for minor restoration work. It's a tiered process. So we had lots of enthusiasm in that room for that concept.
Sure.
And we took it to the next stage. Well, the state said, well, we really can't afford at this point to even do an EA. We can't afford it. So an NGO, Conservation International, came up with some funding for the EA. So now we're working, all these agencies are working together, which is phenomenal.
That's great.
This
is happening right now.
It's happening right now. It's already gone through the state process, the Conservation District use process, and that is almost finished as we speak. The next process is going to be having the Corps of Engineers come up with a general permit design, that they can
Circulate.
The best of both worlds is for the Corps of Engineers to give that authority to the state to issue permits under this.
Yeah.
And that would take the Corps out of the picture.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
They would not have any authority.
At that point, they would just basically say the state has the authority.
For this area?
Because, for Hawaii, yeah.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah, because the Corps is understaffed and, overworked.
Yeah.
And
It can
they're
make you wait a
often
long
a stumbling
time.
block just because of the fact that they have too much on their plates.
Yeah.
So this would take that off their plate, and the resource agencies would still have the right to look at the applications to make sure they fit under that criteria that we established. But the process would, optimistically take a month or two
Oh,
to
that would
complete.
be miraculous, given the fact that you have to wait years now.
Yeah, so and that would take care of 8, 10 different authorizations, approvals that you need from the various agencies.
So, I mean,
Which
really,
include NOAA.
it addresses a problem that, I mean, I'm sure you have some thoughts about this, where you have multiple agencies, all with authority, over pretty much the same activity.
Pretty much.
And, I mean, we had to get into this because of, what do you want to call government expansion. And can't we just sort of unexpand and say we don't need this agency or that? And, NOAA has scientists and it can make these decisions. For example, just have NOAA sign right there. That's it, right there. Why can't we do that?
Unfortunately, there's federal statutes, the Endangered Species Act and the Essential Fish Habitat Mandates, the Magnuson-Stevens Act that would need to go away first. And the chances of having that happen are slim to no.
Yeah.
So basically you figure out you can't do that. So how else can you tackle this problem? And that's again through these programmatic approaches where you still protect the environment to the maximum extent possible, but the activity can proceed in an expedited manner.
I hope that's true. I mean, it's not just fisheries, it's or aquaculture. It's so many government activities, you know.
Well, I can
this
tell you
country
that
has that layering effect in so many places.
I can tell you that my bosses are looking at this as a model for other things that we do that are similar in nature.
So you'll come back after this thing is in place, and we'll talk about whether it really happened in 30 days?
Well, the process is going to take a lot longer than 30 days for it to go through the federal process with the Corps of Engineers. But once the thing is in place, then the authorizations will probably take 30 to 60 days. So fish pond practitioners can come in, fill out a simple application, and then not have to go to each individual agency for approval.
Well, one-stop shopping is really wonderful. But, you know, it's not easy to get there, and the same, what do you call it, regulatory, bureaucratic forces that created it is still there, and people...
And that's why this is a great model, because everybody's enthusiastic about, this is a win-win situation.
Yeah.
You know, people have talked about revitalizing the Hawaiian culture, you know, through this fish pond
So it's politically
initiative.
popular to do this.
I would hope, yeah.
So if it happens, I mean, or I shouldn't say if, when it happens, okay, then how will that change fish pond, if you will, fish pond aquaculture in Hawaii? Are we going to see a lot more? Will I be able to go down a Safeway and buy some fish pond product?
Perhaps in the future. You know, there's a limited amount of species that can be raised in a fish pond.
What kinds?
Oh, things like mullet, ava, moi. Some of those types of species are the easiest to raise, and it depends on your palate and the kind of fish you want to eat. You know, those are species that are very popular with, you know, the Hawaiian community. So again, it's sort of a community thing. I think it's the real opportunity is going to be feeding the community that surrounds the fish pond.
Yeah.
And a lot of the operators really don't want to be commercial, you know.
I understand that.
They want to.
They want to do it the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, and
So
provide fish for the community.
What is the old-fashioned way, though, in terms of the technology? So a fish pond, it's on the ocean. The ocean water passes through it, I guess.
Yeah, there's a gate, a sleuth gate that's called a makaha. That basically has a weir in two different places. So, and the fish go in and out with the tide. And when you want to, and there's narrow slats, so the large fish can't get out. And so during certain periods of the tide, the gates are opened and the fish go into the middle portion, and then they're harvested.
So it's like
That's
you
a
said,
traditional
I'm
way.
hungry now, so I'll drop that weir down.
That's a traditional way on
a great idea.
the way it was done. Yeah,
So you bring them in, and then you stop them from getting out.
right. And there may be some need to actually stock fish initially, just because our inshore fisheries, a lot of them have been a bit overfished. So we're also working with Oceanic Institute and other agencies, other entities that are interested in helping get this off the ground.
And they stock. They grow stock, don't they? Oceanic does.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to stock a given fish pond, you would go to them, and they would have some kind of stock for you.
Well, they're trying to get set up to do that. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so hold that for a minute, and we have a few minutes left to talk at least about what happens, not in the fish pond area, but in the open ocean area. I mean, looking ahead, looking at a time when we can, you know, find ways to generate larger amounts of protein. How are we going to get there? Because so far, I mean, I've heard, you know, stories where it takes half a dozen years or more.
Yeah, it's the same problem. You know, all the entrepreneurs that, you know, would think about opening a fish farm in Hawaii or anywhere else in the United States are gun shy, just because of, one, you know, the labor costs, two, the regulatory environment. It's just, you know, and then to get through that process takes, like you say, years. So they don't have time to wait. They'd rather go to someplace like Mexico or China, or places where they don't have strong environmental laws.
That effectively is happening.
And in a way, you know, we're pushing the problem somewhere else.
Right.
I mean, we're all one world when you think about it.
Right.
So why have an inferior product coming from China when you can do it right here?
Right.
So
So how do you fix it?
Again,
we have, you know, we have so many agencies, they want to sign off. You can find situations where a given application has been in somebody's in-basket for a year and a half
Yep.
or two. Guy hasn't done anything. You want to go down there and smack him on the side of the head, but there's nothing you can do about it.
everybody has their job, and a lot of it is a misunderstanding between the two parties. You know, everybody, you know, they don't want to budge either way, so there has to be compromise. And again, you know, we're tackling the problem in a similar manner as we're doing with the fish ponds, and trying to go with more of a programmatic approach.
You think you'll be able to get the fish pond approach, the programmatic approach, for open waters, you know, for open ocean aquaculture? That would be terrific.
It won't be exactly the same because there's more potential impacts. So we need to build up the trust first, to have the people that are in the agencies making these decisions be able to know that, yes, you can do this without impacting the environment in a negative manner.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's not going to happen overnight, but the first thing that we're trying to tackle is coming up with at least have a group of people that can get together and talk about these things. And I formed a couple of these. One is this offshore open ocean monitoring group. We have 40 or 50 people from various agencies, including UH, all of the resource agencies, the Corps of Engineers. Scientists that meet on a regular basis and discuss these issues. And one of the things that we're working on is to come up with a standardized monitoring protocol. Because monitoring is very important. Like I mentioned before, you know, that blue ocean mariculture has to go out there and monitor extensively, you know, several times a year. So we still want to do that. We want to be able to have targeted things that really are more pertinent to aquaculture than the standard test is now. And then what happens when you go into the deep ocean that's so far away from, say, 1,000 feet? Do you still have to monitor the benthic environment at 1,000-foot depth? You know, the chances of that material getting to the bottom are very, very slim.
But it's expensive to monitor the depth.
Exactly.
Because whatever schmutz is down, may I use that term? Whatever schmutz is down there at the bottom, you don't know what it is until you go down and look.
So there are people who have developed mathematical models that they can input the number of fish, the environmental conditions, the current, the bottom, and really kind of get a good idea of how much fish you can put in a given area. And we're working with a couple really, really smart guys that are modelers.
You know, there's, you know, I've been following, I mean, in the same program, in this block of time, 4 to 5, aquaculture on land, and, you know, and also diversified agriculture in general on land, and find that there are really not that many people doing it for what I would call a real living. They may try it as a hobby, but...
As far as aquaculture goes?
Well, diversified agriculture or aquaculture. Well, you know, and I think we will agree that aquaculture, diversified, make that aquaculture on land is very sexy. Aquaponics, very sexy, and you know, can generate an enormous amount of protein.
It can.
But there's not a lot of people actually who are out there. You know, you come out of college, come out of UH, for example, have a degree in science, and say, I'm going to build, you know, an aquaponics facility, or I'm going to go open ocean. I mean, it's so difficult, and I'm thinking that, you know, Hawaii has a great future in this, but between where we are and that future is a long way.
Yeah, I think you're right. We need to get our young people more interested in pursuing careers in aquaculture, and I think it's sort of a cascading effect. You know, you make it a little bit easier for it to happen, then there'll be more people that are interested in doing it because it's worth their time and effort. If not, then, you know, why waste your time?
So how do we do it? I mean, for example, if it's a matter of money, we could incentivize them. We could make loan programs. We could make capital investment programs. I don't know if that'll help with the permitting, but maybe you have to have both tracks. You have to have the incentives, and you also have to have you know, a permitting system, which is like the programmatic one you described for the fish ponds. Yeah,
and unfortunately it has to come from the top down. You know, there's places that the places that are doing well in aquaculture are subsidized in a large part by the government in China and elsewhere. Taiwan is another perfect example, where the government, puts money into aquaculture because they know they're going to get a return on that investment. We're not at that point yet in this country, so we need the research dollars. We need more government support, both from the federal and the state government. The state has to get interested in aquaculture. And again, aquaculture has had a varied history, and even in Hawaii, we've had ups and downs with the shrimp industry and things like that because of disease problems. But, it's a new day. We really have to get with the program and have better. It starts with the education. University of Hawaii is slowly moving into getting some more programs that are basically I don't know if they have a degree program yet, but I think that there's a move by some of my colleagues to get a certificate program in aquaculture at UH.
This is open ocean rather than aquaculture.
Aquaculture in general.
Both.
Yeah. My colleague Benny Ron, who
sure.
is working on that.
Well, I feel that we could be late on this. We could be late, and China and Taiwan could generate enormous amounts of protein, and we'll become dependent on them, just the way foreign oil, the same thing, and foreign photovoltaic, the same thing, and so it's a race against time. I
think the last numbers I heard were either a $10 to $12 billion seafood trade deficit in this country.
Yeah, which is too bad.
Yeah, with 90% of the seafood being imported.
So you're in the right place. You're in the right place to see this happen, to see those incentives, to see the improvements in the permitting process and in the science.
We want to move forward. We really want to. I want to see this happen in my career. To know that aquaculture in Hawaii, the Pacific, and the U.S. is thriving.
Right, and we can provide our own protein. Yeah.
Definitely.
Alan Everson, Regional Aquaculture Coordinator for NOAA in this region, the Pacific region, here on Monday's Agritech in Hawaii. And our question was, what's holding up aquaculture in Hawaii? And it's complex, but promising. Thank you so much, Alan.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Aloha.